All right, let's get a practical example. It is 11 in the morning now. About write things out, do the simplest thing possible. Don't overcomplicate things. So um, let me get my spreadsheet here. Let me move the window in a way where you can actually see it. Okay. So yesterday I had three features. The render the sprite sheet, render the bitmap font, and element composition. With the final goal obviously being the borderless window title. Now, as I want to do rendering the sprite sheet and rendering the bitmap font, if a programmer, you notice, if you've done this before, that these two are actually almost the identical operation. And both of them require a texture, both of them are rendering a quad, and both of them need UV coordinates. So in essence, the difference between a bitmap font and a sprite from a sprite sheet is just what you call it. It's just a semantic thing. Now, for me personally, I find it very useful to separate these two regardless, because you don't want to make things abstract to the point where you don't even know what it's referring to. Because if you're rendering a sprite with quad, with the name quad renderer, and you're also rendering the text with the quad renderer, it becomes very hard to know what everything is for. It's up to you how you want to fill that in. Anyway, to get this working with my indirect draw renderer, I need a way to bind the textures. And so I had this amazing idea, of writing a second indirect draw command builder specifically for the sprite sheets. That's a bad idea. It's very complex. I thought, this is too complex. There must be a simpler solution. And there is. It's bindless texturing. Now, bindless texturing is where you create a texture in OpenGL, you park the texture, and you get a handle to the texture, and then you upload that instead, and then you use like an indirect reference to that handle. Which sounds very complicated, but really, I swear to God, it's not that complicated. And what this allows you to do is to just give all the sprite sheets up front, and so now my quad renderer does not need to rebind textures on each draw call. So I have almost no complexity anymore in my draw code. Perfect. So it also makes it very readable with the slight overhead of having to manage handles to textures, which is unsafe to do. Unsafe not in a your computer will have a nuclear meltdown kind of way, but unsafe as in you have to be careful because you are doing something that the driver is not protecting you in doing. Which also sounds scary, but then you have to imagine that the driver has to do things that are unsafe all the time because the driver has no driver to hold their hand, etc. Okay, so to get the bindless texture manager, I figured out, okay, well, I also need the abstract texture class. Now, the reason I found this out is twofold. I need to make the bindless texture table. So to do that, I need a buffer object to storing the handles, and then I also need to keep track of a list of textures for this. At least right now, that's how I think I have to do it. Obviously, once it's finished, maybe some things can be different, but for right now, it's the easiest way to get there. So I'm working on a texture2D implementation, which is basically just an abstract class that I'm writing that makes it easier to load and store textures. Now here's where unnecessary complexity starts creeping in, because I'm creating a constructor for this thing, and you want to give it a width and a height, and possibly you also want to give it color data. But then I'm like, okay, but there's going to be a point where I want to make a texture without color data. Very reasonable. So what you then do is you do this, you remove the data from it, and then you're like, okay, no, actually, basically, that's just the other constructor with GL, the width, the height, possibly null. And so then I might actually make that a qualifier, and then I'm like, oh, if data it's not null, actually load the data, and it all becomes pointless because at this point I'm wondering, okay, first of all, I don't like if statements based on these variables. I would just like a function that does what it says. So no, I would do this. I would a new byte, and I will make that the size of the width and the height and the amount of pixels data, like the amount of the RGBA, and then this would go away. Now I have two constructors, great. But then I'm unnecessarily writing the data here and then it's unnecessarily calling this with empty data, and so this is all one constructor, mind I tell you, that I'm wasting my energy on. And so what I think is, no, actually I'm making a bindless texture table. This is where I go back to what I need. I'm making a bindless texture table. I'm doing it specifically to load a font, which I have on my computer, which already has color data. So I only need width, height data, and what comes from here. And yes, in the future, it's very likely that I need to create my own frame buffers, and they also need a texture assigned to it. And when I need to do that, I don't need to give data up front. And whenever that happens, I can afford the complexity of making a secondary constructor. So if you are like me, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's this obsessed with getting everything pixel perfect, and also like commenting everything and the names of the variables. It's crazy how obsessive I am over that stuff sometimes. So this is a great example, guys. These 3 goals, you're going to start working on them, and then as you are making the bindless texture manager, you take this as your new goal, the bindless texture table. And you're gonna say, okay, what do I need for that? Well, I need to be able to store the handles on the GPU, and then I need to be able to also keep track of the textures on the CPU. Now I'm going to do this the least optimal way possible by making an abstract texture class, because it's just simple for me, and then go from there. Okay, so then this is like a recursive function. Now we're going to look, do we have an SSBO for storing the handles? And I happen to have this in my folder here somewhere. Somewhere in here. I will not go through this this mess, because Christ. Okay, here it is. Buffer object. I have something like this here. It's not perfect. This is all something I've been working up previously. I've not looked into cleaning and optimizing the code and commenting it, because that's also something you should postpone. First, get everything working. Alright, so I have the SVO, then I need a list of textures. Now, I didn't have a way to store texture yet. I mean, I had in every other possible project, so I knew what to do. But now I'm going to make that. And that is very tedious. It's very tedious to then go into the texture method and to write down, okay, what do I need to get a texture on the screen? Well, I need to be able to first generate a texture using OpenGL, then I need to bind it, then I need to qualify maybe the data and some parameters about the texture, and then I unbind the texture. Now, some people say don't unbind things, it's a useless operation if you know the state of OpenGL up front. I'm a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. I feel very nervous if things aren't reset the way they were before. And a specific reason for that is I was working on the custom window, and I couldn't see something that was rendered into a frame buffer, and the reason for that was because I did a certain depth test using my indirect renderer, and because I listened to people telling me not to unbind stuff, not to reset the parameters, it was overriding a parameter that the frame buffer actually needed, and I could not, it was hard to diagnose, because the advice you get online is to enable stuff or disable stuff, but only if you can reasonably conclude that you've done that. So if you don't know, if the tutorials assume that you didn't make changes to the state of OpenGL, then the advice they're going to give you is probably going to contradict that of your actual practical code base. So now, am I a senior engineer? Absolutely not, guys, but this is a practical example of write down what you need, and when you find out that the bindless texture manager actually needs an abstract texture class, first write it into your desired, into your feature list that you need to complete. Make it compact, make it abstract so it's reusable. This is just basic programming skills, but don't overcomplicate the implementation. Just make it strictly for what you currently need. So I need an abstract texture class. I'm not going to think about every possible constructor and all of this. Do this, and by the end of the day, you will have 10 extra features on your list that you can mark as completed to see the amount of work you're actually doing, and you will start to understand that that when you want a specific goal, it consists of so many extra steps, and you will feel achieved that you've completed these steps. If you don't do this, and your initial goal is to make an MMORPG, then when someone asks, well, what did you do? Well, yeah, because you didn't write anything down, right? You're like, oh, but okay, today you can talk about, well, I was writing this, and then I had to do this, and then I had to do that, and that's all for the next goal of rendering the sprite sheet.